welcome to another edition of Weekly North News. It is Friday, so it's time to go over all the headlines coming out of the NFC North this week. Let's get right into it. Obviously, it's been free agent week. We don't have the time or the energy to discuss every single thing that's happened, so we're going to pick a few stories from each team, or maybe one or maybe two, and we will talk about those. There's just so much going on free agency. I can't go over every single little signing and roster move and all that. It would just take way too much time. And a lot of it we've already talked about. So let's talk about some of the things that I have yet to be able to touch base with and give you my opinions and takes on those. And we will have a discussion, as always, in the comments. So first, we're going to begin with the Green Bay Packers because they made the first move of free agency. I will give them the top headline. And after we're done, maybe they will wish that I hadn't. But anyway, about 5 days ago, Green Bay kicked off free agency with the re-signing of their running back, Aaron Jones, to a 4-year, $48 million contract. This was kind of a surprise to most people out there online, including myself, because, they thought they would let him walk in free agency because they had Jamal Williams and they had A.J. Dillon. So we all kind of pegged Aaron Jones as being a prime candidate to take over running back duties in Miami, get a fresh start there and with a new offense and more opportunity. But everything is a surprise all the time, apparently, because the Packers have decided to award him with a huge contract and he will stay in Green Bay. Yes, he's been an integral part of the offense, but I think for years we have been screaming free Aaron Jones a little bit more, especially those of you with him on his fantasy roster. And what this kind of did is, as a side effect, it sort of opened up the floodgates on social media for criticism to be revisited regarding the Packers draft last year, specifically the A.J. Dillon pick in the second round. Now, it was really funny watching Green Bay fans have to defend that pick, or just, continue to have to defend that draft altogether as a whole, because the first three picks, just come on, what were they doing? It looks even worse now. But, of course, in fairness, Jamal Williams is gone. We don't have to talk about him. He was let go in free agency. He has since signed with another team. But I just don't see the point in taking a running back in the second round after you use your first round pick on a quarterback that isn't going to play for a couple of years. And then in the second round, it's like, well, you need help on, defense. You need another corner. You could use offensive line. It's just a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers, for God's sakes. No, you take a backup running back who, when you already have two established running backs at the time. So, and now, when the thought process is he could potentially take over as a starter, given how much value he was how much value was used to get him in the draft, you go and give Aaron Jones this huge contract. So, watching them have to defend it was kind of funny. And in my opinion, this is something that you simply don't do. You don't give running backs big contracts. I am on the record of having criticized what the Vikings did with Dalvin Cook. Right now it is still super team friendly. In a few years it will not be, and we will have to, sort of cash that check in the coming years, especially next year. I think is going to be a huge problem. We're going to talk about that more in another video. But in my opinion, the A.J. Dillon pick looks worse, and they spent a good chunk of their a week trying to defend it. So that was the bigger headline coming out of Green Bay this week. There's still more recent news. They haven't really done much in free agency, and I think a lot of people are waiting on an Aaron Rodgers contract restructure. That hasn't happened yet. They have some money, but they have some cap space, but they'll be looking at cheap options for help at positions like corner and defensive line. Moving on, our next team for this Weekly North News edition is the Detroit Lions. They have introduced their new quarterback, Jared Goff, to the media. Of course, they had to wait until Wednesday at after 3 p.m. to officially announce the trade, because that's when the new league year started. But Jared Goff had a chance to talk with the Detroit media, as well as general manager Brad Holmes. Jared Goff had said a lot of the right things, like being traded was a breath of fresh air. He doesn't see this team as a rebuild. And he feels like he was brought here to get the team over the hump. Now, that second thing, he doesn't see this team as a rebuild, may be a direct confliction with what general manager Brad Holmes said also during this media availability, and that was that he expects Goff to be the starter, of course, but he doesn't rule out drafting a quarterback in the first round of the draft coming up here in a month and a half. Now, of course, general managers lie all the time. He could just be saying that because he doesn't want to sort of, telegraph what he's trying to do. He doesn't want to tip his move. So that's all possible. But it would be interesting if the Lions did not draft a quarterback in the first round this year, if they don't feel like any of the other positions are good. I think they're personally going to go wide receiver. You've had Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay leaving free agency this week. Yes, they did bring in Tyrell Williams, and there was another player who they signed who I'm forgetting, another wide receiver. But at the same time, I think that it is likely going to be a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, or maybe they go defense. It's hard to say with Dan Campbell as the head coach, but that is an interesting aspect in and of itself, because I think Jared Goff is basically going to be playing as starter in Detroit this year on a, sort of not a prove-it contract, but it's a prove-it year for him. So we'll see how that goes going forward. Next, we get to talk about the Minnesota Vikings, and you might be thinking, what haven't you talked about this week that you could possibly put in this video? Well, today, a little bit of housekeeping news. The NFL announced that they have lost their 7th round pick this year, and 3 executives are going to be fined $10,000 each for a salary cap issue last year, or in 2019, regarding a practice squad player, which I thought was very interesting because A, you know how much Rick Spielman loves his 7th round picks, and now he doesn't have one. And B, how we're just now finding out about this. So I'm not quite sure what they did yet. I didn't read into the details. It was just announced recently. So we'll find out more about that as time goes on. The other big news for the Vikings this week, outside of free agency, was that they were in attendance for the Georgia Pro Day. And this is very important because Georgia has a lot of good players coming up in the draft this month, or next month, if you will. 2 that I'm looking at specifically, but in total, they have Tyson Campbell, Azeez Ojulari, Ben Cleveland, Monty Rice, Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes actually already did a draft profile on. If you click through to the channel, go to the 2021 NFL draft playlist, you will have the profile on him somewhere in the middle of that playlist. And I just want to warn people who are new here, draft videos that I do are not X's and O's game film breakdown. It's just me introducing you to the player, telling you a little bit about him and what he's about, and some things that I like, some things that I don't like, and where I see him ranked around the draft community. So go into those videos with that sort of preface in mind. And we're going to be doing a lot more of those now that free agency has calmed down. And the one player that I probably will start with will be Azeez Ojulari, because he had a great combine, really, really eye-popping numbers. And I'm already starting to see mock drafts in the community where his stock has risen. So he was like a fringe first rounder before the pro day. Now I'm seeing him in the top 20, top 25, and that's potentially where the Vikings could be picking, whether or not they decide to stay at 14. I think they could still trade back, recoup the 2nd round pick that they lost in the Yannick Ngakoue trade, and then potentially get another edge rusher. I know most people are feeling right now that we need to go offensive line in the 1st round because the left side of the offensive line is still void 5 days after free agency has officially begun. That is a concern and a problem, but there is still time to have that addressed with some cheaper options, with all of the veterans still out there available on the market. So it will be interesting to see how that goes as we get closer to the draft. But I think Azeez Ojulari, if he's available for the Vikings, Stephen Weatherly and DJ Wanham and Jalen Holmes are all great. They're great depth and rotational pieces, but I don't think any of them are going to be good enough to be starters. So they might be looking for a rookie starter edge rusher in the 1st round. And Azeez Ojulari would be a prime candidate to fill that role. Ben Cleveland is the other one that I'm going to be looking at heavily over the next few weeks, because he's a guard that should be available late day 2, early day 3. Hopefully his draft stock doesn't go up any higher. And so Georgia Pro Day, I'm actually very happy that they went to that, because those are 4 really good players, especially the 2 that we talked about just now. And then finally, we saved the best for last, the Chicago Bears. It's been a tough week to be a Bears fan, let me tell you. I feel your pain. And I think Vikings fans could look at this and go, we are luckier than we think we are, because yes, we like to complain about all the problems that our team has. We're not nearly in as bad of a shape as they're about to be, because they've brought in Andy Dalton to be their starting quarterback. And the news of the week, I think, is the release of Kyle Fuller as a cap casualty. Now, hold on, not too fast. Yesterday they announced the release, but today it looks like he was not put on the waiver wire, according to transaction reports. So he's not yet a free agent. They may be trying to trade him before they release him. The reaction after this was initially announced yesterday that they were going to cut him as a cap casualty. I went on Reddit, and man, the reactions to this, coupled with the Andy Dalton signing on top of it, also the rumor that they've told Akeem Hicks he can seek a trade. Bears fans are just at the end of the rope, and I don't blame them. And I think, I could sit here and take the easy shots and poke fun at them, but I'm not going to do that because I don't ever want to be in that situation, right? I don't want to be in a situation where we are just absolutely so fed up with our GM and our head coach. As much as we think we are now, we are nowhere in the boat that they are currently. So that's going to do it for this week. Weekly North News. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. If any other free agent happenings pop up, we will definitely talk about those. Let me know what you think about all these stories in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.